What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me today on Instinctive Addiction Archery. I'm your host, Jeff Phillips. Got a cool one here for you today, and I pray, man, you will enjoy this. This is a very special video, something we finally got time to do, something we've been working on for quite a while. We're gonna have a 100% sit-down interview with the man himself, Jonathan Adams of Old Battle Bows. You guys are gonna get to hear the story behind the bow and how everything came to be what we know today as the Old Battle Longbow. Okay, what I'm shooting right now, guys. And I want you to see this video in its entirety, and you will understand what God can do through a company, through a family, through a product, if you put Him first. Amazing, guys. So stay tuned. Here we go.
Come on in.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I don't want me on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got it.
No, I enjoy watching your videos. And
Man,
I
we
found out about
appreciate
yours through his channel.
That's it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I may
Guys,
be contacting you about one of these.
oh man, look us up. We're on Facebook. Hit us on Messenger. And right here, you get a picture of that. It's got my phone number and everything on it. Just call me. I'm kind of doing it just an old school way, dude. I don't even have a website, nothing. I just, people call and place an order, and I write their name down in a notebook. I mean, it's
Sometimes that's the best thing to
that's
do.
been, and I just love the conversation with people and find out where they're from and talk to people.
Well, that way you can keep it personal.
you can.
You can, and you can talk to a guy, and he can tell you, okay, man, this is what I'm shooting now, what I'm looking for, what I want, and kind of fill him out. Because when you obviously building a custom bow for somebody, you got to figure out, well, what kind of guy are you? What is your preference on things? What are you looking for?
Right. You hunting out of a ground blind, tree
Exactly.
stand, saddle.
It'd be like a 5 foot 8 inch guy with a 64-inch bow to hunt out of a tree stand. It ain't gonna work. It's just too long. I mean, you guess you could. But
What's up, guy?
what's up?
I enjoy talking to you on it, good, man.
The ultimate.
Good to meet
What's
you.
up, Rev? Good
Man,
to see you,
hanging
brother.
in there, brother. Good to
We-
meet you.
Here, y'all
Man,
too,
we just
guys.
fixing to shoot a video on the history and the story, the biblical story, the spiritual side of Old Battle Bows. That's
Oh.
what I'm doing right now. We're looking for a chance to do this for since last year, year
Yeah.
before, whatever.
Yeah.
Forever, man. We just had never had time. So all right, y'all. We're here at the first annual. This used to be the Howard Hill Classic, but now it's the American Traditional Archery Classic. Justin Summers has taken it over, and the very first one is just Friday today, and we've got a big crowd. So anyway, it's just going to grow and grow and become the Etar of the South.
Yes.
And we are loving it down here, man. It's so cool at Tanny Hill State Park in McCalla, Alabama. But anyway, I am here with Jonathan Adams, my buddy Jonathan Adams, that the Lord just kind of put us together. Really strange how it happened, but we talked on the
Right.
phone on the way down here. That's how God works in things. He's got ways to make things happen between people, and you don't even know that it's going to go that way. But I wanted to take time today to kind of share the story of Old Battle Bows. It's becoming a household name now, and a lot of you guys don't know what's really behind this bow company and why I love them so much and what they mean to me. And there's lots of great bows. I don't have to tell you, there's so many good bowyers in the world. They're everywhere. I used to do it. But sometimes there's more to it than that, ain't it?
Yeah.
It just is. So anyway, I'm going to let Jonathan tell y'all. Come on over here. I want y'all to meet the man himself. We're shooting a video on Old Battle
Yeah,
Bows, the
Justin.
history behind it. This is Justin Summers. Come on in, Justin. This is the man I just told you about that is carrying the torch, putting this shoot on, keeping it alive, and not just that, but growing it to the next level. So we're hoping this, like I said, becomes the Etar of the South, man.
That's what I'm trying.
Because we need it here. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many traditional archers in the southern states, and this was one of the most vital shoots that has ever been. It is a destination that people have always looked forward to, and Mr. Harris gave it up last year, pretty much retired. Justin decided to take it over, revamp it, and just go with it. And man, we're having a good turnout on it.
It's been a great turnout.
Yeah, I was sad to hear last year. I was
Yeah.
like, when I came last year was the first year I came, and Jeff was like, you need to come down here to shoot. It's
Yeah.
it's super chill, and everybody, you know, it's just
It's
fantastic. And then I got here and heard it. Oh, this is the last one, you know. And I was like, oh,
We were so
man,
sad it was
you
going to
know,
break our
it's-
family tradition because all my grandkids, they had gotten so used to coming to Tannehill every year, same spot we camped, same people from Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, everywhere.
Right.
Same people we got to hang out with. We made so many friends, and it was like, man, it's over now. We were sad. It's like, where are we going to go now?
This shoot got my wife to shooting archery.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the camaraderie, the fellowship, the whole 9 yards, you
Yeah.
know, it's just, archery's a bonus when you come to this part.
Yeah.
Just the camping and
Setting's fantastic.
yeah.
And when we found out this, I was very excited. Very, very excited. But I want you to tell us about Old Battle Bows. I want y'all to hear the story of how this all started for him. And of course, you can share how we met and how things have just kind of went. But I'll let Jonathan.
Before you
Adams
do
just
that,
take
I'm going to check my other vendors.
There
and
you
I'm
go,
gonna get back
buddy.
on
Good to see you, brother.
Jonathan, I appreciate the donation also for the heroes.
And anytime, it's my honor.
Yep.
My honor.
Yeah, he's built a bow to donate a custom bow to honor our
Man, that just brought me back to Ireland.
guys that have served. A patriotic bow. Can't wait to see that go down. Somebody's going to get a cool bow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited about the deal. The color scheme and everything we picked out is going to be like an American flag, and you know, with some smoke, kind of like the back, the blue that's got the gray in it, and stuff like that. So it's going to be cool. But to the story, never thought I would be here. I've always loved hunting, loved fishing, grew up in the outdoors. Daddy always made sure, you know, that if I wanted to go, he made time to take me, and Mom was super supportive of it. And you know, they always, you know, if I had an interest in something like that and continued to show it, then, you know, they would. So I grew up, you know, I was squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting with Dad and doing all this kind of stuff, deer hunting, and we had beagles and, you know, bird dogs and all that
I
stuff.
think that's how everybody started out.
Well, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and I'd love to see more of it in this new generation.
Yeah.
But
We didn't have deer. When I was a kid, it was a rare thing to. If you killed a deer, it went in the newspaper.
I know.
Okay,
Me,
so
when
you
I
see,
was-
y'all know that we got a lot of deer now. But when I was a kid, if you shot a deer with anything, you would put it in the newspaper.
yeah.
I mean, seriously, yeah, that's the way it was.
Well, when I was a kid, deer was just starting to really come back in the North Georgia mountains really well.
Yeah.
And I can remember the first time that a deer ever came in, and like, you know, it was deer sign was sporadic. It wasn't everywhere like it is now around home
Yeah.
in different places. And so, I mean, this just elusive kind of experience, and then the first one that came in I'd never felt before in my life, you know, all the shakes and the excitement and all that stuff, and I was afraid to move, and so all that hit me at a really early age. Well, I wanted to get into archery, and my dad, he shoots right-handed, but he's left-handed. He throws the ball left-handed, and also he didn't shoot a bow. And and he was always working and stuff. Of course, when he had time to hunt, he hunted the best way he could, you know. So getting time and devoting it, and maybe learning too, he just didn't care about it like that. But he knew I did. And so he and Mom bought me a red fiberglass bow. It was ambidextrous, had a rubber handle.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And man, I was right there. I mean, I was like Fredbear's nephew. You know, I was like, man, I'm living. You know, and they bought me some arrows, and it was super cool. And I was shooting. And I remember one time I got in really bad trouble. Mom had bought some. Remember those pumpkins that you used to fill with leaves and set in the yard?
Yeah.
All right, well, that was a beautiful target.
Oh yeah.
So I was trying to shoot that thing in the eyeballs and in the scrape, you know, and in the nose, and you know, I got in trouble with that. And
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's not hard to do.
no, and I stayed in trouble. So anyway, what I did was I started shooting, and Dad was like, you know, I told him, I said, I want to hunt with this thing. He said, well, I tell you what, he said, if you can, he said, I'm going to set up some Coke cans for you at a certain distance. He
I
said,
remember hearing that.
if you can hit them Coke cans, you know, great. And he said, then you can go. Well, I did that practice where I could do that. And I was like, you know, these rabbits have had it. They're done. I mean, their goose is cool.
Yeah.
I'm gold. And it come a rain, and then in the wintertime, it iced, and then it turned to snow. We had in 1993, we had a blizzard.
Yeah, I remember '93. That was the blizzard. Yeah.
And in my lifetime, there's never been one before that, and never one since. And we were without power for 7 days.
Yeah.
And it felt like I was living in. As a kid, I can remember. I was like, man, I wonder if this is what the frontiermen felt like. You know, we had oil lamps, and we were cooking on Coleman stoves.
Kind of took you back in time.
Yeah, and so we couldn't get to school, and my sister liked to went crazy. You know, she was 5 years older than I was, and she was dating and stuff, and phones didn't work, and all that stuff. But for me, I had arrows, and I had my pellet rifle and all that kind of stuff. And then when the snow started melting, it started getting to where, you know, I could get out and track some stuff. You know, rabbits were moving. And I remember tracking this rabbit. And people's probably heard some of this story.
This is where the real story kind of begins.
Yes.
Of the naming of the boats.
Yes. And so I was tracking this rabbit, and I tracked it for a long time. And my feet, the boots that I had, I didn't wear. They weren't waterproof. Feet froze, fingers were froze. You know, and I tracked it, and I made it all the way up to this. There this rabbit was under this cedar. I could see it, and I was like, man, that's closer than that Coke can. This is great. And in my mind, I had already harvested that rabbit.
Yeah.
And I drew back, didn't find an anchor, didn't execute my shot my arrow, lost it in snow, dug to try and find it, you know, all that stuff. Man, I come home just defeated. You know, I was like, I'm ready to quit all this stuff. This is, you know, for all that. And I remember that I was on this old part of a road that had turned into kind of just like looked like an old logging road now.
Yeah.
It had back all the way back where it come off the main highway. It was named Old Battle.
So y'all catch that. So the old road that you came up on after missing your first real live game with a boat, you head down, walking back home, come up on this road that was called Old Battle Road. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can imagine, you know, my 12, 13-year-old self, you know, just you know, and I realize I can still get that childish today.
Yeah.
You know, and you just sit there and it's like, man, I'm just ready to quit, you know. And so I've got a long walk back, you know, and I'm just whipped in every way. And I was like, you know, I wonder, you know, and I began to rationalize. Mom and Dad made sure that I was raised, and they took me to church and different things, taught me to be grateful for things and to look at things try and look at it with perspective. And I was like, you know what? I got thinking, I'm not going home with an empty stomach. You know, I'm not going home to, you know, starvation here. We've got food at home. I wonder what those people were like that
had to hunt for a living.
Yeah, and that just felt that right there, and you know, it kind of brought it into a different mindset for me. And then I began to think about, you know, I don't need to feel sorry one bit. You know, I'll come back tomorrow and try this and that and the other, and so fast forward. Yeah, I remember I got bit by the proverbial trad bug, if you will, and my son was out shooting in the yard with his compound.
Yeah.
You know, and I used to shoot ASA shoots and all that stuff and enjoyed that and really did, but you know, my bow was set up at the time. I didn't have time to go to the ASA shoots anymore.
Yeah.
And to travel and do those things, I had children. And you know all about that.
Right.
Now you've got grandbabies and stuff, you know, and it's so, you know, it's hard to get time for everything. And so I was out there shooting. I didn't want him to think I wasn't enthused to be out there with him. You know, but you can only draw a 70-pound compound and shoot at 10 yards so long, you know, so you know, I was like, I think I'm going to try. I've always wanted to get back into traditional archery. I'm going to try it. So I got in this old Martin 60-pound recurve that a guy let me borrow, and I created more bad habits. And anyway, so fast forward, I got a bow, and The first bow I ever bought for myself was a striker. Fantastic bow, still have it.
Yeah.
And great recurve. And I started shooting that thing, and I harvested a few animals with it, and then I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I mean, yet nothing against the compound. I'm
Bug
glad.
bit you, man. That's it.
Well, and I'll reiterate what you said on one of your videos was, you know, look, man, if you're out there hunting with a crossbow, compound, rifle, I don't care. If you're hunting and doing it ethically,
Yeah.
then good for you.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, I mean, I listen.
Everybody's not ready for the transition.
No.
I mean, I've still got friends today that are perfectly content with what they hunt with, and they don't want to do anything else. But there comes a time when it's your time.
Yep.
That yes, you say, you know what, I want to go to the next level. I want to do something different.
Yeah.
And all it takes is coming to something like this.
Mm-hmm.
If guys that have never experienced it ever came to a shoot like these and got to actually go through a 3D course with a traditional bow, they would be so hooked. I'll guarantee you they'd be ordering a bow that week. Somehow they would be buying a bow.
They'd be starting.
Yes,
you know.
they would.
And it's a journey. It is, and that's what it's been for me.
Yeah.
You know, so I started my journey, I guess you could say. Like
So
you're
here,
saying.
so basically, what you're saying is, by this time, you've gotten into traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you actually decide to start building your own bows and come up with your own design and what you have now?
Okay.
And how the name actually come into that?
Well, my wife and I were sitting there one day, and she can tell when I'm frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I would find I'm not the best shot in the world, but I can do okay, enough to hunt and satisfy myself, which is another
He can
reason.
shoot.
I named. You showed me yesterday you can shoot. Yeah, I remember. And the standard and the name of the bow was, you know, and I'm not saying that, you know, it's like I wasn't trying to. I wanted something that suited me and something I liked, and I liked it in every way. And like Jeff said, there's all kinds of great bows out there, but I also think that it was kind of God's way of getting me where He wanted me anyway, because I was like, you know, I can't find one that does what I want. It's
Right.
You know, if they're long, then and I hunt out of a tree stand a lot, so if they're long, that string hits my pec muscle.
Right.
Or gets
Right.
against my clothes, and you know, and I'm like, I can't shoot this thing out of a tree. And I was like, man, if it would be shorter, I'd try a shorter one and it would stack. Or I would try a shorter
And
one.
y'all don't miss this part, because what he's saying here, and this is true with longbows, it's very hard to find a longbow that shoots like a 64 to 68 inch bow,
Right.
but yet is short in nature, like 56 to 58 inches, that you can shoot in tight quarters, that doesn't stack, it doesn't feel like a longer length bow.
Yeah.
That's what is a lot harder to find.
Yeah.
It truly is. Yeah.
Well, and also I lean more toward a longbow. I mean, recurves are fantastic.
Mhm.
And you know, you take, like, you know, you give me a recurve and give Jeff a recurve, they're going to watch Jeff shoot and say, you know, I want a recurve. You know, but it's the thing about there, you can shoot a recurve really well. But for me, any kind of imperfection in my shot, it magnifies it.
Anything,
So
because like these, you cannot torque these limbs. You
can't twist
I
them.
don't care what you do, you cannot torque a limb on a longbow.
So
Can't
I
do
was
it.
like, I want a longbow,
Right.
because that's going to help me be more accurate. And that's kind of what got me started down that rabbit hole. And then, you know, I would find them, and then, you know, I would get one, and not naming any names, but you get a hold of some of them, didn't they feel like they tried to reinvent the wheel on the grip?
Yeah.
Or they would strum, or they would be loud, or they would vibrate, or
Hand shot.
hand shot, or they would stack. But there would be something. And my wife told me when she was like, well, have you ever thought about just making it?
Yeah.
And I was like, she said, well, with your background and what you used to do, you know, why don't you just make that?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I've never claimed to be the brains of the relationship. So she had mentioned that, and I was really entertaining it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? So I prayed about it, and I was like, you know, is this consuming too much of my thought, my time, and all that kind of stuff? Is it even right to get this tore up over something like that? And you know, I thought that, but now, I mean, looking back, if those things hadn't have been, then I don't know where, you know.
Right.
But
everything works together.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I was like, you know, so the next week, a friend of mine, and he owns Badger Broadheads, and he does guiding and stuff for Fred Eichler. His name's T. Patton. And he called me. And he's like, you know, John, he said, and just kind of out of the blue, we were talking. And I was asking him about his bow and what he got and everything else. And he said, I got a buddy of mine whose name is Tony Ryder, who builds drop time custom bows. And he said he's getting older, and he's looking for somebody that he can teach that will learn how to build that bow. I know you're used to building stuff, and with your background, just wondering if you might be the guy that'd be interested in learning. And this is days after my wife had said that.
Yeah. So that's not a coincidence.
No, and it gets...
It's not. No, not at all.
It gets even better. So we're sitting there talking about it in his shop, and then in comes this guy who's a retired sheriff from Gordon County in Georgia. His name's Sid Roberts. Sid comes in, who's a really good friend of Tony Ryder's. And he comes in, and we're talking, and this, that, and the other, and he said, you like trad archery? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, you look like a younger guy. And I said, well, of course, you know, I was a good bit younger than him. And he said, hey, if you hear anybody that's interested in learning how to build these things, I got a friend of mine named Tony Ryder. So here this guy is coming in, and T's just told me that. My wife's told me that. So I called him. And fantastic, salt of the earth guy. Man, took me right in, loved on me, showed me the ropes, showed me how he did things.
See, and that's kind of what happened with me. My dear friend Jeff Lamar was, in my opinion, a master bowyer. He just never wanted to really go public with it, but he was a master bowyer. But he showed me everything he had learned, and I just took it and run with it, you know. But it takes somebody, you know, because you can't just figure it out by yourself completely.
No.
You know, I mean, or at least they could save you a little bit of trial and error of the basics anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and then you figure out how to design it your way and what you like about a bow and how you want it to be better and different.
Yeah.
You know, or different and better, whichever way it goes. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of I think God knew that for me, and at the time I wasn't planning on doing it for a living.
Right.
I just wanted to make myself a hunting bow that I like.
That's how it starts. You build yourself a good bow, you love it. Next thing you know, you start selling.
Yeah, exactly. So I get there, and I'll give you this too, just a testament to Tony Ryder and the kind of guy he was. There was this bow, and it was called a Manus Tribute, and that was his longbow. It was close to what I was wanting. And he said, this is crazy. He said, but I think this guy's wants at 58 inches at 50 pounds. And he said, if this is kind of what you're looking for, I think that'd be your wheelhouse. And he said, and he told us to design it, this, that, and the other. And I looked at it, and we picked some stuff out, and I picked out some beautiful stuff. I mean, it was got the veneers from South Cox.
Oh wow!
Oh man,
Yeah.
and just beautiful myrtle and mango.
Oh, yeah,
and so I'm building this thing, and you know, I'm being real tedious with it, worried about it. He's kind of helping me walk through it and everything else. Well, I get it done. I go out there and I scale it, and it's 50 pounds at 28. First bow I ever done by myself.
So you hit weight the first bow.
I hit weight the first bow.
That's good.
And he smiled, and he said, now let's deliver it. And he said, no, he said, now. He said, all we got to do now is just, spray it, and then, it's delivery. So we sprayed it and everything else. And I went down there, and he gave me that.
Wow.
And I mean, it's just, I can't thank him enough for it. And I killed several. I still got it. It'll never go anywhere. I'll pass it down to my children, whatever. I still got it hanging on the wall. I still shoot it, and it's a reminder, And every time I walk past it, And so, fast forward some time now. I've helped build a few, and he showed me the long bows, and he builds recurves and all kinds of stuff, 3 pieces and everything. But I was mainly interested in the 1-piece long bow. That's what I want. And so I get home, and I get my press ready, and it's 64 inches long, and it's 12 inches wide and 1.5 inches thick.
Yeah.
And I chalked me a line down the center of it, and I remember sitting there looking at that, and it's like, Lord, I got an idea, but I don't know. I've got an idea. And I said, but you know the man that fired the very first arrow ever known to mankind, and you know him by name.
Right.
I'm not asking for the best one, just help me build a good one.
Right.
And so
that was a legit prayer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. He knows our hearts. And he knows what I want.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is, and he knew what it meant to me. And so, but I can say this too: if it was junk, I was going to be okay with it. I just keep going.
Yeah.
And, I've messed up and all that stuff before. But what's cool is I'm still making bows on that very same press today.
Yeah.
I did not modify it. I didn't change it.
If it turns out good, don't change it.
No, I haven't cut it. I haven't sanded it from the very first bow that I glued on it. And the very first bow that I glued, just to give you a little bit more some background, I put Tony's emblem in that bow, and it came out 45 pounds, and I missed poundage. I was wanting to be 50 in my design. All right, so 45 pounds. Well, what's funny is my cousin loved 45 pounds, and he is the main one that kind of encouraged me to go ahead and get on into it. And he had been hunting with it, harvesting animals, lives in Kentucky. So I hunted with it, shot a buck with it, and I was like, you know what, I like it.
Yeah.
And I was like, so
basically a bow, an actual bow was born from a try it, see if it works kind of thing out of a homemade mold.
Yep.
And it turns out to be a really good shooter that gets used to actually kill several deer with, and becomes kind of the flagship. It becomes, hey, this bow is legit. Man, it shoots good. What do you do from there,
Well, yeah, so I was like, so what do I do? Well, then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, I had 6 arrows for that bow, is all I had. And I had all these other arrows for the 50-pound ratio with a bow cut to center. Okay? So I'm like, I'll just build me another one, and I'll give my cousin Chris this one.
Right.
So I sent it to him for Christmas, and I mean, he's done so much, taught me so much, treated me like a little brother when it come to hunting in the trad world, and just been super good to me. And he loves to hunt. He doesn't sweat it. He gets out there and he worries more about the hunt than probably the equipment and everything. Well, anyways, so I give it to him. Well, about a year and a half goes by. Okay, and then I built me one. Started shooting it. Went to a shoot. Come back without a bow. Sold it to a guy. I did that a few times, and then my wife's like, again,
like you can really sell these things.
Yeah,
hey, you really can.
And then I was tore up about it. I still wasn't thinking. I was like, man, I don't want. It's and I'm like, I'll build you one. They're like, no, I want this. So I built one that's really hideous. I mean, it's ugly. And
sometimes the ugly ones are the best shooters.
Well, and this one shoots really good. I still got it. Matter of fact, there's a guy that has it right now. He's been writing an article on it for Trad Nation and different things like that. But, he and I told him, I was like, I want this one back though. This is sentimental to me, and that being said, a guy still tried to buy it. Was going to hydro dip it.
Right.
I was like, no, I'm not selling to you. So. That's about the time I sold a bow to a guy named Cody Fry out in Missouri. And I'm like, babe, I told my wife, I just took an order for a bow in Missouri.
Yeah, that's when it gets real.
Yeah.
It starts getting real.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm doing this on the side, and how much of this can I do? And how much, and still be a dad, still be a husband, still do what I got to do and everything. And it got to be where I was, a couple months out, and then Bob Palmore, who's a board member at the Tennessee Classic, had met.
Yeah.
Went up coincidentally, not coincidentally, but through the sovereignty, I believe, of God. he met with my cousin Chris up there on some type of transaction they were doing for something else, and found out they'd both gotten into traditional archery. Well, he asked my cousin, he's like, what are you shooting now? And he said, I'm shooting this bow that my cousin makes, and he come up with a name for it. He called it Old Battle. And he's like, I've never heard of those. And he said, well, yeah. So anyways, he started shooting this thing, and that's when he called. Yeah. And I'm like, well, am I going to the Tennessee Classic to actually just, I was like, I don't have any bows.
Right.
And he's like, well, call anybody you know. So I'm calling guys I've made bows for around home.
Yeah,
and
really, this is serious. The first major event that he brought Old Battle bows with like banners, a name, and a table full of bows to show people to shoot, that's when it just exploded. Yeah. But they were all pretty much bows you had built for people that they owned. They were not just stock bows. No. It's like, hey, man, can I bring your bow to the shoot? Let people see it and shoot it kind of thing, you know? Because, you just hadn't built that many at that time.
No, I hadn't. No, I mean, just, I hadn't built a pile of them, you know? So I brought, I don't know, 6 or 8 bows from guys that was within an hour's drive to the house, and I was like, I'll take care of it. And they would joke with me, I know, it's fine, take it, John. Right. I know where to get another one if they break it, and this, that, and other, and so I got up there, and I didn't have much traffic through.
Yeah.
And really went there didn't have any expectation, And then Trevor Fielder came by.
Everybody knows Trevor.
Yeah,
Trevor Fielder. Triple T strings. Trevor is the man. And this is where the story gets really good.
It does. It is. Yeah. And he was like, he came by and he goes, Old Battle, bows. And I said, yeah. And he said, never heard of it. And I said, well, I've never been here.
And if you know Trevor Fielder, he's a very blunt guy.
Mm-hmm.
He tells it like it is.
Yeah.
He cuts to the chase. He's straight up. He's unfiltered.
He is. And I was like, I actually asked myself, I'm like, am I ready for what this cat's going to tell me?
Yeah.
When he takes my bow and shoots it and comes back to me, And I told him, I was like, just take it and shoot it, Trevor. I said, you just tell me exactly what you think. He smiles.
And you knew who he was.
Well, I didn't. I knew he shot for Triple T when he came by because he had the shirt.
Okay.
And I was like, Triple T, man, those are some good strings. Yeah. I hear good things about them. And then the way that he answered that, he said, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then I put 2 and 2 together. Yeah. And I was like, okay. I said, so you're Triple T, and he's introduced himself.
Gotcha.
And it was fantastic meeting him, and he said, well, I'll get by and shoot one. I said, well, I'll look for you. And I said, I'll have my big boy pants on, buddy. You just tell me what you think.
Right.
And
just be honest. Yeah.
Just be honest. And he said, oh, I will. And he said, I'll get by. Well, he'd come by after shooting the course and this, that, and other. And then he'd come back by again. And when he come back by again, he's going to find somebody or whatever. And I just hollered at him. I said, I'm still looking for you, Trevor. And he said, I'll get by. And he started coming back through, and when he come back through again, I mean, of course, no telling what he had on his plate or anything else. But what I did appreciate was I knew he was going somewhere on a mission. And I seen him cross, and I never forget it. And I said, hey, Trevor, and he stopped me, he looked around, and said, I'm still looking for you, buddy. And he took about 2 more steps, and he said, you know what? And I said, what? And he said, I'll just shoot it right now. And, and I was like, oh, man. Did I really want to do that? Because he's going to, and
he's going to be unbiased. I will tell you now, when you take a guy like Trevor Fielder that shoots a Tokyo 10X, shoots competition, USA Archery, he's going to tell you if your bow's not all that, okay? He's going to be brutally honest. So it's the way it is.
But, yeah, so I'm praying.
Yeah.
I'm looking and I'm like, Lord, am I ready for this? And I'm fixing to get sent back to Georgia with some humble pie, and that's fine. I've eaten humble pie and everything, but I really want to know. Yeah. And so he comes back and he liked it. He was like, man, he said, that's one of the smoothest longbows I've ever shot. And I was like, seriously? And he goes, yeah. And I knew then, I knew he'd tell me straight, but he said, you got a tape measure, and I was like,
why? He wanted to know how to build strings for
Well, it didn't dawn on me right away.
He's a string guru. Okay, so and that's part of what he told me. And okay, so it goes from this, how we even met, and I'm going to share this part with you, was through Trevor. But even when I first talked to Trevor about you, and he told me about you, he said, I've already done the measurements on these bows to build strings for. So he's prepared all ready for string orders.
Yeah.
It knows exactly what to build for this boat.
Yeah.
That's just how he is. You know?
Well, I was wondering, you know, as like, what's he going to tell me right here? He's like, you got a tape measure. And I'm like, what's he wanting to measure?
Yeah.
And then, of course, I was slow for a second. Then it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute, he's fixing to measure the string.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, can you hold that? And I was helping him measure my string out, you know, and holding the dummy in, of course. And he said, I got a feeling I'm fixing to start making a lot of strings for me. And I was like, you think so? And he goes, oh, yeah. He said, matter of fact, and that's when he said, I got a buddy of mine needs to come check this out.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know, and I mean, I figured, you know, I didn't know, maybe one of his buddies from high school or
Right.
somebody he came down with, whatever. And he said, he goes, yeah, matter of fact, I'm going to text him right now or call him. I can't remember which one it was. And he said, you know Jeff Phillips? And I was like, you talking about Instinctive Addiction Archery, Jeff Phillips? He goes, yeah. And I said, oh, yeah, I know Jeff Phillips. I've, you know, watched all your videos.
Yeah.
Checked those things.
But we had not met at this time.
No. And but I'd watched his videos and everything else, and had been FOC, making sure getting the anchor, you know, and you know, budget arrows versus expensive arrows, and you know how to all the ones that you did. Remember the ones you did where you had the tip weight, you know, and you could adjust the arrow left or right and get it to hit where
that was one of the oldest ones I ever did.
Yeah.
And I did that with, believe it or not, I did that video. That's one of the oldest ones with a Jeff Lamar longbow. One of the Shady Oaks one-piece longbows that Jeff Lamar built, my friend. Took that 45, 6-pound bow and did the video to prove that simply changing point weight would bring left groups to the right. That your arrows are just too stiff. Simply add point weight and move your groups over.
Exactly.
That was one of the first videos I ever did, man.
I went to shooting. I'd been shooting left, and I couldn't. I thought it was my bow arm. Bow arm. And I'd sat there, dude. I mean, I spent. I thought my arm was gonna fall off, Jeff. And I was like, golly, I'm still grouping left, you know. And then I found myself starting to compensate for it, and I was like, no, I don't need to do that because you know you can't. So, anyways, I was watching that video, and then it clicked when I went down there. I went straight downstairs, and I got me a field tip. That was when I went from 150 to 200.
Right.
I stuck the 200 on there, and I walked out there, and I looked at my tennis ball size spot, and I drilled it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that
50
cat.
grains is about 2 inches in group movement at 20 yards.
Yeah.
It truly is.
It is. And I was like,
truly
that cat right there.
So
you know,
now, okay, we'll get this wrapped up a little bit. Let me tell you guys what's up. So at this point, obviously, I didn't see Trevor's text or anything like that. We were walking out from the last target, heading back to where all the vendors were at. Well, here comes Trevor and meets me. He says, hey, man, there's a guy over here I want you to go over here and see, man. The guy wants to send a bow home with you. And I was like, okay, you know, cool. You know, he said, he's a really cool guy. He said, and I've done the string measurements on his bow. He said, man, but he's over there under that pavilion. And he said, his name's Jonathan Adams. He's got old battle bows. He said, go over and holler at him, man. He wants to send a bow home with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I finally made my way around there, you know, and I looked and I saw this guy sitting here at the table, you know, and it's like as soon as I approached him, it was like it just clicked, you know. He jumped up, we shook hands, we almost hugged, man. I mean, it's like, okay, we're instantly friends now.
Yeah. Well, at that point, you didn't know.
And
exactly
he was like the same way with Trevor.
Yeah.
He was like, dude, I want you to take one of these bows over here to the range and just go shoot one. Just give me your honest take on the bow. You know, just be honest with me. That's all I'm looking for. I said, well, yeah, man, no problem. So we went over there, and I think it was a 58-inch one that I grabbed. The first one, I think it was a 58-inch. I can't remember. But whatever bow it was, if you'll remember,
it was 58.
My first 4 arrows were touching. Instinctive. I'd never shot the bow before, and it was effortless.
Yep.
And I was like, dang, God, I'd like to have one of these, man. You know, for real.
Well, I was swallowing hard. I was like, this cat right here.
Wow, man, it was like really smooth. I mean, the bows didn't have shock. It checked all the boxes. Okay. And I probably said that before in some videos, but the bows check the boxes. I mean, and all bows don't. Okay. And with me, he knows me well enough that there's no way I'm putting myself out there to promote anybody's bow if it don't check the boxes.
Right.
I don't care who it is. So they did. And he's like, no. He said, man, just let me build you a bow. Let me build you one. So I'm like, wow, well, it's been a long time since I've had anybody build me a custom bow, because I built them for everybody, but I have had it, shoe on the other foot kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, man. I said, make me something cool that's different that nobody's got. So he does this toxic lime green and Bacote and all this stuff, and the bow is just awesome. And anyway, I wound up, I just absolutely loved it, of course, and just got this one here now. And the other one, I mean, there's none of them. I'll promise you this. It does not matter to me which one it is. They shoot exactly the same. I cannot even tell any difference in them. It's just, I like a bow that's not super long myself because I hunt out of tree stands and stuff, or ground blinds. Mm-hmm. And I'm only like 5'9", and 165 pounds. I don't need a super huge bow, But what was so cool is, okay, I got on board and I was like, dude, I'm going to be brutally honest. Yeah. I have to. I have to let people know, because every day somebody's asking me, hey, man, what bow do I need to order? Yeah. What do you recommend? What do you recommend? What do you recommend? And I just started saying, well, dude, if you don't mind waiting a little while, holler at my boy here and get you a real bow. If you don't mind waiting. If not, yeah, we got this bow and this bow and this bow that you can buy from Three Rivers or whatever that are great.
Yeah.
But if you want one of these, man, get on the list and get you one.
Yeah.
And it just kind of took off from there, man. It did. And the next thing we know, he sends me this message, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Jay Gregory.
Yeah.
Jay was one of the absolute. He was Matthew sponsored, wasn't he? I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Jay Gregory was on the Outdoor Channel probably and whatever else for all these years, hunting in Iowa and all this. He killed so many monster bucks, and Jay was old school. He's my age, and I've watched him for all these years.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, he's got a bow that looks almost identical to mine in his lap, and now he's doing
reverse risers
videos. He's shooting traditional, and I knew that he had went traditional because he did a video shooting a recurve.
Yeah.
He started hunting with a recurve, and I knew the trad bug had bitten him.
Yeah.
And this is somebody that has taken compound bow hunting to the highest level you could take it, to where you are on network TV every Saturday morning.
Yeah, killing stud deer.
Yes, that's to go traditional, and he winds up with one of his bows.
Yeah, super nice guy.
And I'm like, this is so cool.
Yo, yeah, it was coolest, dude. Coolest experience, and to get Jay one. I've actually got to build this cameraman one. So Jim is his name. Jim McMahon, I think. And,
it's hard to believe it.
Hard to believe it, and so I guess you could say the rest is history, But
dude, that is the kind of God we serve.
It is, and
it is, man.
And
no limits.
And I remember too. It's like you asked me, about the standard.
Right.
And
Yeah. Okay. Here, the name on the bow. The standard. Every limb, it's got it written on there. These are old battle bows. We know that name came from that road from way back in his childhood on a rabbit hunt in the snow when he was down and out. That name of that road stuck in your mind because it's from where you come from, and the biblical aspect. It's the battle. Tell us about the battle and about the standard.
Yeah, and the Lord really used traditional archery in a way for me, and I'm going to try to hit the high points.
Yeah.
All right, but the old battle, anybody knows, like you dealt with some target panic, some videos on
yes.
You're
taking up the traditional journey is a battle.
Yeah.
You're going to have a mental battle. It's always going to be a battle to stay in the game, to stay shooting like you're supposed to. It's always going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It is, and you've got to. I realize that I have to prepare my mind.
Right.
It's a mental thing, and some things you can't be prepared for, and all that kind of stuff, and you've got to battle through that. And there's going to be highs and lows, and ups and downs, and difficulties, and misses and hits,
but it's a battle that's been going on from the beginning.
Exactly.
He mentioned that God knew the first man that ever fired an arrow. And I think back even to Nimrod. The Bible talks about Nimrod being a mighty hunter before the Lord. We got all these Old Testament names of people that were archers, that were hunters, that went out into the field and they hunted venison. They had deer of some kind.
Yeah.
So, you know, this has been going on. The longbow, even in the medieval times, the longbow has dominated forever. And it seems like it always goes back to that. No matter how high-tech a bow can become, it all comes back to a simple one-piece longbow.
It does, and it's like it's the
Crazy.
simplicity of it.
Yeah.
But there's two things in that simplicity that God showed me, is that the bow's not the problem.
Right.
You know, it's you know, as far as once I got my bow, you know, I mean, you can take about any bow, and if you put it in a machine, it's going to shoot really well.
Right.
It's the ones that help you and help contribute to you making a good shot. Well, that's what God does for me every day. He helps, He contributes and all, but He doesn't change. And I was like, you know, this is an old battle that's been going on. You know, the battle against hunger and wanting to eat, the battle against sin, the battle, the struggle stick. I mean, heck,
they call it a struggle stick for a reason.
Know, and it's,
that's right.
So to be, you know, to do well in it, you've got, number one, be committed to it, familiar with it. You got to know it or study it, and you got to think about it and all that kind of stuff. So then I got to the standard,
Right.
you know, and
so simplicity.
yes,
A simple one-piece bow.
exactly.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot different
Nope.
than the self bow I was shooting this morning.
Right.
An Osage stick bow. Other than a little more ergonomic grip, it's still the same thing, basically. It is.
Basically the same, a little more performance or
Yeah.
whatever in some cases, but you know, but it's simple and you know, and then when I started building this thing, I wasn't trying to build a bow like anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't trying to mimic anyone. I wasn't trying to build it like this. Like what I was looking for was something in my mind that checked off all the boxes.
Right.
And I was like, you know, and I was like, well, what am I going to call this thing? What am I going to call this thing? And I heard a guy make a reference one time, and he said, you know, if I judge you or if you judge me, well, that's really nothing. You know, he said, I'm not the standard
Right.
of perfection.
That's
You
where
know,
it clicked.
That's where
Yeah.
it clicked for me, and I was like, so I'm not.
What is the
measuring-
standard?
The standard is in my life is the Word of God, and if I want to measure myself and see just
every
how
one of them's
short
got
I
it written on
fall,
there. Every one of them do.
I just pick the Word up and I read it, and I'm like, you know what, man, I don't have this figured out. I don't know.
Jeremiah 50 verse 2.
Yes, sir.
That's
Publish
the
a standard, and
right.
so that's.
So God sets the standard, man doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so I'm like, you know, Lord, there's a perfect arrow flight out there, and there's a perfect shot, and the standard would be to be able to do it perfectly every time.
And
I
you could
can't.
say it conceited, but he wouldn't. He's not a conceited
no,
person.
No, it's not like the standard.
You know,
of
it's
all
not like
bows.
that. If you said, okay, well, you named your bows the standard because that should be the standard by which all bows are built to stack up to these bows.
Right.
And even though there is some truth in that, that's
Yeah.
not what's behind it. It's not because he's not that type of guy
No,
at all.
I measure my bows. I
But
don't.
God does set the standard.
Yes.
In everything in our life, being bowyers, being whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter what it is.
And
Yeah.
and the main thing, I guess, there was one passage of scripture that I thought about putting on there, but I didn't. It was, where Paul said, "I press toward the mark
Yeah.
for the prize of the high calling," and that mark was perfection.
Yes.
And you know, it's like, you know, it's just out of reach always, and you know, but it's like you never fully arrive in this trad stuff. It's like you're always trying, learning.
You're gonna have
shooting.
highs and lows.
Exactly.
And you know, 3 years ago when I took my biggest deer ever. Well, I say that I matched him my year before last, but 3 years ago, the first big mature deer I ever killed with a recurve that I built with my own two hands meant more to me
Yeah.
than 1,000 with a compound because it was so special
Yeah.
that I pulled it off what I thought couldn't be done. And that also come with a whole lot of misses, a whole lot of mishaps. You know, and that's what I tell these guys. Hey, if you want to get into this, be prepared and just don't give up. Enjoy it, because you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
You're gonna fail.
You're gonna fail.
Oh, absolutely, you're going to.
In another aspect, not to jump, subjects or anything, but talking about that, when you made me think about it, it's like, that's the point I was going to make earlier when we talked about the tip, and you told me about changing 50 weights, and it moved me to the right. All right, well, I had never studied that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, there's the standard that you're trying to find, even on your arrow flight.
Yes.
You want perfect arrow flight to be your standard.
Right.
All right. So you begin to mess with that thing, and it's like there's so much of this stuff that I found to be truth in Scripture was like, if your right foot offends, you cut it off.
Yeah.
Better in your life, if your right eye offends, you pluck it out. So if you get an arrow that's too stiff, you add weight.
Right.
If you get an arrow that's too weak, you cut it off and get rid of it.
You get a bad one out of a batch, it just won't act right. Throw it away. Throw it away. Get rid
so
of it.
you're
Or you
holding,
accidentally grab it and it costs you a shot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're holding to that
Done that
standard.
many times.
And so even your arrows is like, this is the standard that I have to fire out of this bow, or it's not right. And so that's where the standard came from. It's not like this is the standard of all bows.
Right.
That was not.
So now hopefully y'all understand where this comes from. Everything about Old Battle Bows, because John is such a man of God, and that he has a personal relationship with Christ, and the Lord guides him in everything that he does. And yes, he's blessed the bow company, absolutely, but he's the only one who can do that. You couldn't do it on your own.
Exactly right.
Nobody can do anything of their own. I'm gonna tell you now, you can push your way through, but when things happen in a way that you don't even have to try, and like we were in the camper last night, we talked about 2 years ago. Would you ever have thought you would be where you are right now 2 years ago?
No.
Look what God can do in 2 years.
In 2 years,
amazing.
Yeah, it's unreal.
May
made a year from the Tennessee Classic.
Yeah.
And 2 years in the whole process of all, and now it's like I'm sitting here, and there's times in my shop where it's just like it's hard for me to get my mind around, because I'm sitting here and I'm texting people on Messenger. And by the way, if anybody's watching that, I'll just say that I don't have a website. Probably not going to create one. I love to talk to you. I love to have conversation. And I love to build a relationship. I want to hear from you. And I just do it in old school way.
And that's something that doesn't exist a lot these days, man. It truly doesn't. I mean, you can go online and you can buy bows online, you can order stuff online and not ever talk to a human. Now AI is taking over everything. But the next thing you know, you're going to be called to order a bow, and the AI is going to be talking to you, taking the order.
Yeah.
Well, he wants to stay old school, where he can one-on-one get to know who you are and what you're looking for, and fit you with the perfect bow. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's it. There's nothing wrong with that, man.
No.
Nothing wrong with picking up the phone and calling somebody, is it?
No, and I tell you, and he may not know it, and to this day, but Mike Treadway, I got to have a conversation with him on the phone, and he told me, he said, son, I've never ran a website.
Right.
I just, talk on the phone and stuff, and he's like, I think he told me he was 2 years out, something like something crazy like that. And I'm like, man, and it's, so I just want to build the best bow that I can and keep it me, and maybe my kids helping me someday or something at that. But the main thing is just, that I'm doing exactly what God wants me to do.
That's it.
And I never thought I would be here. Never thought I'd be sitting with Jeff Phillips, and
we just hit it off, man.
Oh man, and I remember the ride home. I remember I was like, did I really just talk to Jeff Phillips, and am I really fixing to build him a bow? And here I am thinking, about publicity and how can it, do I run ads or what do I do? And,
you ain't got to.
You ain't got to. God
No.
puts people in your lives
He does.
that'll help you.
He does.
And and it's been a killer.
I promise you, I was excited, as excited about it as you were. I promise I was.
Well,
and don't get me wrong, I caught a lot of flack from the China train, from certain people, but I also had thousands and thousands of people, and they even today here this weekend thanking me. 2 San Lita guys in a row just walked up, right?
yeah,
2 in a row.
This guy right here, yeah.
Thousands have thanked me for getting them into it and getting set up with, guess what? An Amazon bow, a China bow, a cheap setup. But they're shooting, they're having fun, and yes, they're gonna get custom bows. It's gonna happen, but it has to start somewhere. So I was excited to meet a bowyer that had the same calling in life as me. you know, that in the same passions as me. It just fit. It was wonderful. It was, man.
It was. And
So
I come home and you know, it's funny, and I don't. I told when I come home and I told my wife, you know, and I said I met Jeff Phillips, and she looked at me. She goes, "Who's that?" And I said, "You know, and I said, let me show you." And I went over there and picked up YouTube.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, that's the guy you watch all the time." and I was like, yeah, that's him. That's him. And I said, I met him, and I told him, I was like, I got to send him a bow. And she rejoiced with me and everything. She's like, "You're kidding." And I'm like, "No." And it's been, you know, it's been insane. And I praise God for it. And,
it is. It's awesome.
You know,
Well, I hope y'all have enjoyed this, man. I wanted you to get a kind of an inside look at, you know, the company itself, the bows, the meaning, what's behind it. So when you hear Old Battle Bows, whether I'm talking about them or anybody else, or you see them on the trad pages or wherever or whatever, now you know that where it was born and how it went, and only Lord knows how far it's going to go, you know. But there's also this thing is you don't want to get too big.
No.
You don't want to get mass production. You know.
No, that's somewhere I don't want to go.
You don't want to go there. You don't.
Yeah, it's not the kind of business that I want.
No.
I don't want that kind of headache, number one. I want to keep it. I don't want it to be the kind of job where I go into the shop every day and I dread being there.
Right.
And I will say this too, you know, I'm a year out. I never thought I would be there. And you know, I know everybody wants a new bow, and I want to get it to them and everything else, but I'm just thankful for the ones that has patience and knows that, you know, I am working on it, and you know how it is. You know, it's, and I'm thankful for all my customers. I really am.
But that's part of ordering a custom bow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of it. You got something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get it, it's worth every second of the wait. You get it.
Yeah.
And you're happy with it.
Yeah.
Now, it's bad when you might not be overly impressed with a bow that you've paid a lot of money for and you got it in. That's not cool.
Yeah.
But when you're happy with it and you've waited, it's like, I've got it. Now you just got to work on your part, you know.
Yeah.
And that's it. So I appreciate y'all joining us today for this, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And maybe you learned a little bit about the company.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for
Let me do this. I want to.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching Instinctive Outdoors. Or Instinctive Addiction. I messed up, so that's why I don't do it. Instinctive Addiction.
Instinctive Addiction.
And this is your host,
Archery,
Jeff Phillips.
Till next time, guys. Love you. Bye.
Bye.